These are 20 things you didn't know about Metallica frontman James Hetfield. And for number 20, we bet you didn't know that James Hetfield hates the sound of his own voice. The Metallica frontman has confessed that he actively avoids listening to the band's first 3 albums because his high-pitched singing style from back then makes him cringe.
You know, you listen to yourself back and you go, wow, I'd rather not sound like that.
However, this isn't necessarily surprising when you consider the fact that James never wanted to sing in Metallica. In fact, he was so unconfident in his singing abilities that he personally asked Armored Saint frontman John Bush to be the band's lead singer. But when Bush declined, Hetfield's position as Metallica's singer/guitarist was solidified. Still, Hetfield was not a trained singer, and he would unfortunately suffer a vocal injury during the recording of the Black Album, pushing him to finally take his first vocal lessons. These days, he still warms up before performances using the very same cassette tape his vocal coach gave him back in the 90s in order to keep his voice in tip-top shape, which is good, as James has to protect his voice for more than just singing. Because at number 19, you probably didn't know that James Hetfield is an experienced cartoon voice actor. His first gig came from an unlikely place, with Disney Channel hiring Hetfield as well as Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich to voice a couple of rebellious dragons on the animated series Dave the Barbarian.
You're gonna tell us how come you're here, or we're gonna find out just how far you can stretch.
Yeah, far you can stretch.
According to the show's creator, Hetfield was the standout talent and could even have a second career as a voice actor if he wanted. Since then, demand for Hetfield's voice work has skyrocketed, with the singer portraying characters on shows such as The Simpsons, American Dad, and Metalocalypse. Most recently, Hetfield had a recurring role as the voice of Wolfgang the Werewolf on Netflix's Skylanders Academy. But Hetfield doesn't limit himself to just voice acting, because at number 18, we bet you didn't know that James Hetfield is also an up-and-coming actor. His debut role came in 2019, when he was recruited by director Joe Berlinger, who also directed Metallica's infamous documentary, Some Kind of Monster. Hetfield was cast as Officer Bob Hayward in the Ted Bundy biopic Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. His acting chops received acclaim from critics as well as his co-stars, with Zac Efron, who starred as Bundy in the film, singing his praises.
And James Hetfield, to his credit, he came in and absolutely nailed the part.
Thanks to another fateful connection in Hollywood, Hetfield also had a part on Showtime's hit drama Billions, because as it turns out, the show's co-creator, Brian Koppelman, worked as Metallica's A&R guy in the late 80s and got James the gig. And it doesn't look like James will stop acting anytime soon, as he's gearing up for a role in the Western thriller The Thicket alongside Game of Thrones star Peter Dinklage. Let's just hope that Hetfield's acting career lasts longer than his football career. Because for number 17, we bet you didn't know that a young James Hetfield was on the high school football team, where he faced a decision that would change everything. You see, while attending Downey High back in 1979, Hetfield was part of the freshman team, but his decision to grow out his hair that summer vacation would have unintended consequences that would impact Hetfield for the rest of his life. Upon returning to Downey High to be on the sophomore football team, his coach was not happy about the new look and gave him an ultimatum: cut your hair or be cut from the team. The idea of not playing football was heartbreaking for Hetfield, who for the entirety of his childhood dreamed of playing in the NFL for the Oakland Raiders. However, Hetfield also had another dream: being a rock star.
So right then, it was one of those forks in the road that was pretty pivotal in my life. Do I want to be second strings, playing football, or do I want to be up on stage, with a mission? Speaking through music.
And of course, he chose music over football. The singer would keep his long hair for many, many years. That is, until Metallica's infamous early 90s haircuts, which even saw fans turn on the band. Which brings us to number 16, and the fact that James Hetfield can't stand the Load albums. Now, the Load era consisted of 2 releases, 1996's Load and 1997's Reload, which were Metallica's most controversial yet, with fans of the band's signature sound feeling alienated by the group's decision to go from thrash metal to radio rock. Furthermore, all 4 band members decided to cut their hair short, which led to widespread accusations that Metallica had officially sold out. Hetfield himself would recently confess that he too felt that the band had sacrificed their integrity on these albums, stating, "We've always been very organic, but Load and Reload felt different to me. They felt forced." And this wasn't the first time Hetfield spoke unfavorably about the Load era. Back in 2017, he told Clash magazine that he wasn't completely on board with Metallica's sudden shift to hard rock, but that he went along with it as a compromise with his bandmates. Though, what Hetfield despises even more than the album's sound is the album's cover art. Created by artist Andres Serrano, the front cover features an image showcasing a mix of cow's blood and, well, semen, smushed between 2 sheets of plexiglass. According to Hetfield, his bandmates intentionally chose this album art with the sole intention of annoying him. Lars and Kirk were very into abstract art, recalled Hetfield. "I think they knew it bugged me. I love art, but not for the sake of shocking others. I think the cover of Load was just a piss take around all that. I just went along with the makeup and all of this crazy, stupid crap that they felt they needed to do." And while Hetfield hates abstract art, one thing he does love is bees. So for number 15, we bet you didn't know that James is an expert beekeeper, and his honey jars are crazy expensive. James first began maintaining hives in 2012, and it all started when he and a friend began attending bee club meetings for a laugh. But somewhere along the way, James cultivated a deep respect for the bees. The singer now generates a whopping total of 500 pounds of honey each season, with his kids getting involved to help him filter and bottle his harvest. But if you want a jar of Hetfield honey, don't expect it to come cheap, as an autographed 2-pound jar sold for a whopping $1,150 during a charity auction in 2018. The singer says that beekeeping helps him relax and that he loves sustaining his family with organic food. In fact, Hetfield owns a massive ranch where he grows his own vegetables and even harvests his own meat. But it's not all peace and quiet on the farm, because for number 14, we're taking a look at the years of controversy surrounding James Hetfield's land. The Metallica frontman purchased 1,150 acres of rural land in Lucas Valley, California in 1999, where he set up his Rockin' H Ranch. But in 2008, Hetfield would enrage locals when he permanently shut down a popular hiking trail with a 300-foot-long barbed wire fence. You see, the land Hetfield purchased included a trail that residents had been using for decades, and the land's previous owners had agreed to maintain those trails accessible to the public. Hetfield, however, did not make the same agreement, and grew tired of the non-stop littering and vandalism near his family home. Despite being well within his rights to put up a fence around his property, the locals still called the move a slap in the face to the community. Further angering residents, Marin County was eventually forced to spend over $500,000 building a new trail to replace the one Hetfield shut down. But that's not all, as in 2011, Hetfield became embroiled in a dispute with his neighbors after declaring his intention to develop additional home sites on his land. The singer's application to build up to 34 houses on his property was met with harsh opposition from nearby residents, leading to a lengthy legal battle that the rocker would abandon after a few years. James eventually left California to escape what he described as the elitist attitudes of the locals and moved to Colorado, purchasing one of the most insane properties we have ever seen. Because at number 13, we bet you didn't know that James Hetfield lives in one of the most desirable mansions in the world. Voted Mountain Living's 2010 Home of the Year, Hetfield's nearly $30 million estate is located at the base of the world-famous Vail Ski Resort, with views that would take anyone's breath away. The 12,000 square foot home features 7 bedrooms and 10 bathrooms, as well as a gourmet kitchen, enormous media room, and lavish outdoor pool. Now, Hetfield never could have imagined this level of luxury when he was a kid, as his childhood wasn't exactly easy. So for number 12, let's uncover the tragic details of James Hetfield's youth. Hetfield was born on August 3rd, 1963, to opera singer Cynthia Bassett and truck driver Virgil Lee Hetfield. The family were strict Christian Scientists, which made James feel like an outcast at school, often facing ridicule from the other students due to his parents' religion.
I mean, there's some great aspects to the religion, but for a child, it was a little difficult to grasp. It didn't make me feel a part of this earth, really. It actually really alienated me just, as as silly as it sounds, but it really did.
When James was only 13 years old, his parents would divorce, and 3 years later, his mother was tragically diagnosed with cancer. Despite having a very treatable form of the disease, Cynthia rejected chemotherapy, as Christian Scientists don't believe in doctors and instead rely on their belief in God to heal them. She would sadly pass away within a year, and the loss was traumatic for Hetfield, who would not even have a chance to properly grieve his mother, as Christian Scientists don't believe in funerals. He would even blame his father for his mother's death. Hetfield would later channel his devastation in the lyrics to the song The God That Failed on Metallica's 1991 Black Album. And speaking of the Black Album, for number 11, we bet you didn't know that James nearly blocked the release of one of Metallica's most popular songs. We're talking about the ballad Nothing Else Matters, which James wrote about life on the road and missing his girlfriend back home. The song was meant to be nothing more than an outlet for the singer's private and vulnerable feelings, but Lars Ulrich eventually got his hands on the song and pushed James to include it on the Black Album. At first, I didn't even want to play Nothing Else Matters for the guys, confessed Hetfield. It was so heartfelt, so personal to me. I was kind of embarrassed. Still, James agreed to record the song, but almost immediately regretted his decision when producer Bob Rock brought a composer into the mix, as James felt this strayed too far from what Metallica represented at the time. Despite all of his reservations, Nothing Else Matters went on to become one of Metallica's most enduring songs, with the music video even surpassing 1 billion views on YouTube, their most watched video of all time. James now looks back on this song as one of his greatest triumphs as a songwriter. And speaking of his writing, we can't talk about James without mentioning his fondness for the word yeah. So for number 10, we bet you didn't know just how many times James Hetfield has sang yeah on Metallica's albums. Now, James wasted no time introducing the world to his favorite word, as the first appearance of a yeah came on the first song from the band's first album, Kill 'Em All's Hit the Lights. But the song with the most total yeahs is Merciful Fate off of Garage Inc., which boasts a whopping 22 yeahs across its 11-minute length. However, if we're talking about yeahs per second, that distinction goes to the track Cure from the Load album. In total, James Hetfield has sang yeah 233 times on Metallica's releases. That's an average of at least 1 yeah per song. In addition to being known for his love of the word yeah, James is also known for his unconventional way of playing the guitar. So for number 9, let's examine the strange way James holds his guitar pick. Because while every other guitarist in the world holds a pick using their thumb and index fingers, James holds his with his thumb, index, and middle finger. When asked about his peculiar grip, he replied, "It just made sense to me. I tried it the other way to see how it would feel, but there's something about having that extra finger that stabilizes the top of the pick. Otherwise, it moves too much." Hetfield has also noted that he used to hold a pencil the same way in school, and teachers would attempt to correct this technique by whacking him on the hand, which is no good, as Metallica's management have become extremely protective of James's hands over the years. So for number 8, we bet you didn't know that James Hetfield is contractually banned from skateboarding. The Metallica frontman first took up the hobby in the 80s, using it to help him fill the endless downtime while on tour. That is, until the afternoon of March 26, 1987 changed everything. That evening, Metallica were set to perform on Saturday Night Live, but were forced to cancel when James broke his wrist after falling off of his board that very same day. To make matters worse, Metallica also had to push back the release of Garage Days Revisited by several months while James healed up. Faced with financial losses due to the injury, the band's management company, Q Prime, then decided to put a clause in Hetfield's contract, forbidding him from riding a skateboard while Metallica was touring. At least James can find comfort in the fact that he's a playable character in the Tony Hawk Pro Skater video game series, where he can skate virtually to his heart's content without the fear of injury. And speaking of injuries, for number 7, we bet you didn't know that James Hetfield has nearly died on stage. Let's go back to August of 1992, when Metallica toured alongside Guns N' Roses, bringing an all-new state-of-the-art pyrotechnics setup with them. The problem was, Hetfield had not completely familiarized himself with the new pyro, and, as a result, accidentally walked into a 12-foot-tall explosion on the tour's stop in Montreal.
So I'm burnt, all my arm, my hand completely down to the bone, side of my face, hair gone, part of my back, and watch the skin just rising and things going wrong.
Hetfield would have lost his life if not for the fact that his guitar shielded him from the full force of the blast. Still, he He suffered second and third degree burns across his body and was immediately rushed to the hospital in what he describes as the worst pain he has ever felt. Due to the accident, Metallica's set was understandably cut short, but at least fans still had Guns N' Roses to look forward to, right? Well, not exactly, as GNR frontman Axl Rose would make the crowd wait for 2.5 hours before hitting the stage. Rose would then have a tantrum halfway through the band's performance, smashing his microphone on the floor and storming off stage after playing a measly 9 songs for their headlining set. Almost immediately, the enraged crowd began to riot. They overturned police cars, looted the merch tents, and even started multiple fires, causing an estimated $600,000 in damage. Rose reportedly showed little remorse for the incident, with this and several other interpersonal issues between Rose and Hetfield leading to a decade-spanning feud between the two singers. But of course, James is no stranger to conflict, because for number 6, we're gonna take a look at how James Hetfield caused not one, but 2 of his bandmates to exit Metallica. First up is ex-Metallica guitarist and arch nemesis Dave Mustaine, who was in the band from 1981 through 1983. Though Mustaine was told he was being fired for his substance abuse issues, the real story is a bit more nuanced than that.
So I got a dog. It was a dog more like an alligator with fur on it. It was a pit bull, right? So I took the pit bull up to rehearsal when I was in Metallica, and it stuck its little teeny feet up on the car of the bass player. James kicked the dog, so I punched him in the face, and that was the end of it.
He cites this fist fight as the true reason he was later fired from the band. An embittered Mustaine went on to form rival band Megadeth, and continues to trash James Hetfield in the press to this very day. And of course, we have to talk about former Metallica bassist Jason Newsted, who in 2001 would suggest to his bandmates that they take a year-long break so that he could focus on his side project, Echo Brain. Hetfield immediately voiced his disapproval, stating that he was against the idea of any member of Metallica taking on a side project. James started saying, "I'm not sure I'm good with this," recalled Newsted. "My head started spinning. I was feeling like a little kid being reprimanded." The final straw came when Hetfield blocked Metallica's managers from representing Echo Brain, pushing Newsted to suddenly and dramatically quit the band. Metallica nearly called it quits after Newsted's exit, and it's hard to imagine Hetfield losing the band he helped create. Because for number 5, we bet you didn't know that Metallica's iconic logo was created by James Hetfield himself, on a napkin of all places.
When we were thinking up of the band and what dream we wanted, how we wanted to conquer the world with music and all this stuff, I don't know, it just came out of just a sketch.
Though not an expert graphic designer, Hetfield did gain valuable illustration experience in high school drafting classes, which helped him bring his vision of Metallica's logo to life. His work has certainly stood the test of time and continues to be featured on the cover of Metallica's releases. Hetfield's design is so good that it's even been ripped off multiple times, with pop artists shamelessly emulating the barbed wire lettering for their merch. However, it wasn't until one of the Kardashians stole the logo that Hetfield finally spoke up. Because at number 4, we're talking about James Hetfield's beef with Kendall and Kylie from Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It all started on June 28, 2017, when the sisters announced that they would be releasing a line of vintage shirts which featured their faces plastered over images of several musical icons, including Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, and more. The backlash was immediate, with Ozzy's wife, Sharon, being the first to blast the designs. "Girls, you haven't earned the right to put your face with musical icons," she stated. "Stick to what you know, lip gloss." Soon after, both Kendall and Kylie would issue public apologies and pull the shirts from retail, but James Hetfield would make his feelings on the matter known, telling ET Canada, "To me, it's disrespectful. We've spent 36 years working hard, doing our best to keep a really close connection with people, make every note count, and someone just throws something up over our logo. Show some respect." And one thing that we can safely say Hetfield respects is the rules of the road. Because for number 3, we gotta talk about James Hetfield's absolutely insane car collection. The Metallica frontman owns a wide range of crazy expensive classic cars that were hand-built specifically for him, like his 1934 Packard Aquarius. With a value of more than $114,000, it's certainly a sight to behold. Some of his other cars, like his $40,000 1936 Ford Iron Fist, were even worked on by Hetfield himself, with the singer welding and sculpting some of the car's components. His most expensive ride, however, is his 1936 Auburn Slow Burn, which Hetfield commissioned from renowned custom car builder Rick Dorr. Featuring hand-fabricated panels and an insanely luxurious luxurious Egyptian leather interior, this set Hetfield back a staggering $800,000. In total, James Hetfield's car collection is worth over $2 million. But as we all know, money doesn't buy happiness. So for our second to last entry on this list, let's dive deep into James Hetfield's struggles with addiction. Now, in their early days, Metallica were affectionately referred to as Alcoholica, and with good reason. They outdrank all of their peers and then some. Unfortunately, this lifestyle would slowly forge James Hetfield's crippling addiction to alcohol. After decades of bringing his drinking habits home with him, the singer was eventually kicked out of the house by his wife. Hetfield realized that he had already lost his family once as a young boy, and he was on the verge of losing them again. So he made the decision to get sober and took a highly publicized trip to rehab in 2001.
What worked for me was 7 weeks someplace, like basically tearing you down to bones, ripping your life apart. Anything you thought about yourself or what it was, anything you thought you had, your family, your career, your anything, gone. Strip you down to just, okay, you're born. Here's how you were when you were born. You were okay. You're a good person. Let's get back to that again. And then they slowly rebuild you.
The singer remained sober for 15 years. However, things would take an unfortunate turn in 2019, as Metallica would be forced to cancel their touring plans for that year so that Hetfield could enter rehab for a second time. And it's not just drugs and alcohol, as Hetfield would further state that he's also addicted to fame during a 2022 interview with The New Yorker. In the same interview, James would make another startling confession that we're going to examine on the final entry on our list. So for number 1, did you know that James Hetfield still doesn't feel like he belongs anywhere? In 2022, the singer was asked if he felt satisfied with his life, and his response was disarmingly honest, bringing up internal questions fans will surely be able to relate to. Will I ever allow myself to be happy enough to say I found it? Asked Hetfield. Maybe that's a lifelong quest. The search for family. When my family disintegrated early on in life, I found it in music. I found it in the band. Obviously, our fans have become a kind of worldwide family, but at the end of the day, they say they love you, and you kind of go, okay, what does that really mean? And Hetfield's introspective answer is understandable. Earlier that year, he filed for divorce from his wife of 25 years, and also experienced an emotional onstage breakdown in the middle of a Metallica show in Brazil that was captured on video, where Hetfield would confess that he was reluctant to hit the stage that evening due to feeling insecure, old, and like he couldn't play guitar anymore. Thankfully, his bandmates in Metallica were there to support him.
So, I talked to these guys, and they helped me. As simple as that. They gave me a hug and said, hey, if you're struggling on stage, we got your back. And I tell you, that means the world to me.
That's when Lars, Kirk, and Robert walked over to James and gave him a group hug. The singer was overwhelmed with emotion and began to openly weep on stage. He would then look to the audience and say words that everyone, including James himself, needs to hear. And seeing you out there, I am not alone. I am not alone, and neither are you.